Thank you, though.
All right, good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Troy Livingston, Livingston. I'm here this morning to provide some additional information from the officer-involved shooting from yesterday afternoon. Obviously, this is a tragic situation nobody wants to encounter, but it does demonstrate how quickly things can escalate and what our officers deal with, the dangers they deal with on a daily basis. Our thoughts and prayers remain with all those affected, including the family of the suspect. To give you a little background, two Wichita police officers have been working several weeks attempting to locate this suspect that was familiar to him. He had multiple warrants. The warrants were out of Sedgwick County, Newton, and Wichita. The charges on these warrants included aggravated robbery, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, theft, and traffic charges. The officers also knew the suspect to be armed and dangerous. In one case, the suspect pointed a handgun at a loss prevention officer to avoid apprehension, and in another case, the suspect entered a home with a handgun along with other armed suspects, and the suspect battered 3 males in the home, and a shot was fired. The suspects in that burglary stole some property and fled. So that's the information the officers were working off of when they got there yesterday. So yesterday, the officers, along with a Kansas Department of Corrections employee, working with the Enforcement Apprehension Unit, and yesterday I said U.S. Marshal, that's because of some of the confusion at the scene, so we wanted to clear that up. They learned the suspect was going to be there with his 26-year-old girlfriend at the Sedgwick County Corrections Office at 905 North Main at approximately 1 o'clock for an appointment. The officers believe the suspect may be with her, so they went to that location. As the officers were monitoring the area, they observed the suspect arrive at 1:04 p.m. driving a red 2008 Ford Focus, and he parked in a parking stall. I'll point out when he parked in the parking stall, he had vehicles on all sides of his car. The officers asked for emergency traffic and advised there was a wanted person in the parking lot. The suspect's girlfriend exited the vehicle and went inside, so there was a little confusion yesterday when I was being asked questions that was somebody with him. Yes, somebody was with him, but they weren't in the vehicle at the time of the shooting. So after the girlfriend goes inside the corrections office, the KDOC employee pulls behind the suspect to block him in, and 2 WPD officers approach an unmarked car. They park that car, get out, and approach the suspect. Because the suspect is known to be armed and dangerous and had several violent warrants, the officers drew their handguns and gave several verbal commands for the suspect to exit the vehicle. Instead of exiting the vehicle, the suspect disobeyed commands and put his car in reverse and struck or rammed the KDOC vehicle behind him. The suspect then pulled forward and he turned towards a WPD officer who was on the driver's side, almost striking him. The officer had to lean back out of the way to avoid being struck. In fact, he kind of gets up on one of the parked cars and he was fearful that he was going to have his legs broken or crushed. I will also tell you that the officer on the driver's side believed that his partner on the other side, on the passenger side of the vehicle, had actually been run over. The WPD officers, both of them, there's 2, yesterday we said just 1, fired multiple shots at the suspect and struck him several times. The suspect continued to drive through the parking lot, went over a parking block, into a metal pole, and then into a concrete pillar that was in front of the corrections office. The vehicle proceeded in a southeasterly direction, went over some steps onto Main Street, went across Main, and hit a wall at the business at 906 North Main. Immediately, the officers went ran across the street to apprehend the suspect. And that's when the officer was injured reaching inside the vehicle. He got his arm cut on some broken glass. The suspect was transported to an area hospital and in critical condition and remains in critical condition. A handgun was found on the suspect as he was removed from the vehicle. One of the officers, as I said earlier, sustained minor injuries while removing the suspect from the vehicle, and the tag on the suspect vehicle is also reported stolen in Sedgwick County. So just to give you a real quick, brief timeline, in case there's any confusion, officers believe that the suspect may arrive at the Kansas Department of Corrections at 1 p.m. At 1:04, officers see the suspect arrive. They ask for emergency traffic, advise they have a wanted person in the parking lot. At 1:05, a Wichita police officer advises shots had been fired. So within 1 minute, this escalated very quickly. You can see it transpired very quickly. At 1:06, another police officer is at the suspect's vehicle after it crashed, indicated shots had been fired, and one person had been shot in the head, and all the officers were okay. Now, the officers involved, as we pointed out yesterday, is a 13-year veteran of the Wichita Police Department, and the other officer involved is a 5-year veteran of the department, and both officers have been placed on paid administrative leave, which is standard protocol for officers involved in these type of incidents. Wichita Police Department, I want to point out, also asked for the assistance of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation to provide accountability and transparency during this investigation. So that's my statement. I'll take some questions after we show you a real quick, brief video here to give you some snapshots of what occurred yesterday.
Let me know when you're ready. We're good?
All ready?
Of course, Officer Cruz will be releasing that to you later. I want to point out those are just snapshots, still photos. You see the officer, almost getting crushed. You keep in mind that's just a snapshot. As the video progresses, that suspect vehicle is even closer to the officer and the car that he is standing in between. So keep that in mind. The officers and that officer was fearful of being crushed. Also, he thought the officer on the other side had been ran over, especially when he hit the parking block, because the vehicle kind of altered a little bit. So, is there any? I'll stand for a few questions.
I guess I'll ask the question, where was the vehicle when they were shooting it? Were they in very close proximity to the vehicle when the shots were fired?
Yes. Yes.
Did they see any indication of a weapon?
I don't know that. He did have a weapon on him when the officer took him out of the vehicle. I wasn't a part of the interview, so I don't know if the officer actually saw that through the window or not. But his immediate concern was being crushed by that vehicle.
I know you touched on this a little bit. Maybe you could just kind of go over some of this again. This suspect had warrants where, and tell me about a gun was drawn at some point and pointed at who again? The suspect had pointed a gun before in the past at somebody.
Yeah, he had several warrants, which include aggravated robbery, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, theft, and traffic charges. So we just give you a couple examples of some cases. One of those cases, the suspect pointed a handgun at a loss prevention employee to avoid apprehension. That's an ag assault. In another case, he entered a home with a handgun along with some other armed suspects. The suspects battered 3 males inside, and then a shot was fired at that residence. Then they stole some property and fled.
These officers with the Violent Crimes Task Force, they probably had knowledge of those things going into this?
They did. So, as I pointed out earlier, they had spent several weeks attempting to locate this individual. When you have those type of charges and you know someone to be armed and dangerous, you do your best to try to get them off the streets as quickly as possible.
And for people who don't own guns or don't know what police officers do for a living, this is a very short time frame. Explain what an officer on the street is going through when something like this happens, how you make decisions quickly.
Well, you know, we train them to identify threats and protect themselves and others from those threats. I'm not going to pretend like I'm in the mind of those officers because they had to process that so quickly. But, you know, they were fearful. One was fearful he was going to be severely injured. He thought his partner had been ran over. And the other officer on the passenger side of the vehicle believed that the officer on the other side was about to be crushed or injured. So, you know, when those things happen, you got to make immediate, you know, quick decision.
We'll just do one more question.
And obviously, you've had time now to interview both of those police officers. Again, can you just tell us how they're doing and how they described this entire situation?
Well, I can't go into too many specifics how they described it because this is still an ongoing investigation. I will tell you though, and deservedly so, the officer that almost got crushed yesterday was very shaken up.
All right, thanks.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Okay, appreciate Deputy Chief Livingston coming and giving an update. Both these officers are also part of the Violent Crimes Task Force. And the Violent Crimes Task Force proactive work continues to help reduce shootings in Wichita and help keep this community safe. So appreciate the hard work by the officers. Appreciate Deputy Chief Livingston giving us an update on this officer-involved shooting. Two other items we're going to cover in our public safety briefing is in reference to an aggravated battery that occurred last night approximately 10:30 in the 1900 block of North Broadway. And then also the Wichita Police Department, Sedgwick County Sheriff's SWAT team was activated last night at approximately 8 o'clock to assist with the incident in the 1800 block of South Exchange at a residence. So we'll talk just briefly about that as well. So the case number on the aggravated battery, 19C2143, again, occurred in the 1900 block of North Broadway. Last night, approximately 10:30. There was two officers doing some follow-up in the area of 19th and Wellington Place. While the officers were in this location, they heard gunshots to the east of them and began to circulate the area to investigate. A separate WPD officer was in the area of 17th and Broadway and had seen a blue Ford Taurus driving southbound in a suspicious manner. Officers observed the blue Ford Taurus circle the neighborhood and park in front of the Boom Smoke Shop at 1935 North Broadway. The officers observed a front seat passenger flee from the vehicle on foot. Officers were able to arrest the 15-year-old front seat passenger after a short foot pursuit in the area of 1900 North Market. A rifle was located near where the juvenile was arrested. Officers observed the 16-year-old driver of the blue Ford Taurus enter the business. Officers took the 16-year-old into custody inside the store, and inside also located an 18-year-old male who had received a gunshot wound to his right hip area. The 18-year-old male was transported to an area hospital, treated, and released. The investigation revealed there was a disturbance that occurred outside of the Boom Smoke Shop parking lot of the business between the three individuals, the 16-year-old, 15, and 18-year-old, when the 18-year-old was shot. Both juveniles were arrested and booked in the juvenile detention facility for aggravated battery, discharge into an occupied vehicle, and possession of firearm by a juvenile. This investigation is ongoing, and the case will be presented to the Sedgwick County District Attorney's Office.
Do we know what the altercation was in the parking lot between the three?
I don't right now. Investigators have not received much cooperation from during this investigation, so we're still working to obtain all the information of what has occurred.
Did they all know each other, though?
I believe so, yes. Or at least acquaintances of some sort.
Any gang relations here?
Not that I know of. All right, just a quick synopsis on the SWAT incident last night. It did originate with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office. However, we do have a Wichita Police Department case number in regards to it. It is 19C002148. The Sedgwick County Sheriff's Warrant Section had went to a residence in the 1800 block of South Exchange, checking on a wanted male at that location. A female had run out of the home, indicating the male they were looking for with warrants was inside, was on drugs, and she believed he had a gun inside of the residence. The officers that were on scene then backed off and contained the area, and the Wichita Sedgwick County Police Department SWAT team was activated, and the SWAT negotiators at approximately 8 p.m. to assist with this investigation. The WPD SWAT team utilized communication, time, and distance in attempts to talk to the suspect. Negotiators were able to talk to the suspect for approximately an hour, and after that hour he peacefully surrendered and came out of the home and was taken into custody without further incident. The individual was booked by Sedgwick County Sheriff for his warrants. He was taken into custody at approximately 11 o'clock, and fortunately there were no injuries involved in this case.
Do you know what he was wanted for initially?
I don't. Again, the Sedgwick County Sheriff's warrant team are the ones that initiated the warrant check at this home, so they would have further information on that.
And the female, what's the relation to the male again?
I know a female at the home. I don't know the exact relation, but I know a female that was at the home had come out and give the officers information, which again alerted the officers to basically contain the area and activate our SWAT team to assist with the investigation.
And how old is our individual?
I'll refer you to Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office on that.
I have one last question about the officer involved shooting. I don't know if you can answer. So his girlfriend was there at the KDOC building. What was she there going in there for?
I don't have the
He also had an appointment.
I don't have the information. I know that they believe the suspect was going to arrive because they had found out the 26-year-old girlfriend had an appointment at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't know why she was there.
Okay.
Is he still alive?
Yes. Deputy Chief Livingston stated he's still in critical condition.
Do you know how many gunshot wounds he received or where he
I
was
do
shot?
not know.
But he didn't have an appointment there. She did.
Correct. Okay, appreciate everybody being here on this Friday. Stay safe, please, and if you need us, you can always call us. Thank you.